Welcome back. I'm Iris Tao. A historic milestone, the final stages of the mission. The Artemis II crew is now gearing up for re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Artemis II is the first crewed mission of the Artemis program. 4 astronauts are now returning from a journey around the moon and back to Earth for the first time in more than half a century. The crew includes NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch, along with Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The Orion spacecraft orbited Earth before embarking on a 4-day journey to the moon, flying around it and then returning to Earth. Joining me now to discuss is Congressman Jay Obernolte of California. He serves on the House Committee on Science, Space and Technology and chairs the subcommittee on Research and Technology. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Congressman, for this very exciting moment. So we are just looking at the NASA live feed of this splashdown process. We know that the astronauts say from there, all systems are in excellent shape. Weather conditions remain a go. And of course, this is before the communications blackout as they enter Earth's atmosphere. So as we watch Orion streaks through re-entry and heads for a splashdown soon, tonight, how significant is this moment for America's return to the moon? And what makes it more than just a symbolic achievement?
Well, this is an incredibly exciting and significant milestone for not just our country and our space program, but for humanity. We have humans returning from deep space for the first time in 50 years. And this is not just a step towards returning to the moon, but a step towards human exploration of other planets such as Mars. And obviously, we're just minutes away here from reentry, the most exciting, but also the most perilous time in the entire voyage. There is absolutely nothing routine about re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. The Orion spacecraft is right now traveling at over 24,000 miles an hour. It's going to reach in just a few minutes temperatures of nearly 3,000 degrees and nearly 4 Gs of sustained stress on the astronaut crew. So that's something that NASA always takes very seriously, and everyone will breathe a collective sigh of relief when the astronauts are successfully recovered.
Well, no doubt this is one of the most crucial and dangerous phases of the entire journey. As you mentioned, the crews will feel nearly 4 times their body weight as they go back into the Earth. And also communications blackout will last about 6 minutes as the plasma envelopes the capsule here. So back to the large image here. How critical is it for the U.S. to really maintain such leadership in space when it comes to technology, but also strategically and economically?
Well, there are so many different aspects to why this is important for U.S. space and technology policy. Clearly, we develop lots and lots of different beneficial technologies as we prepare the astronauts and the systems and the spacecraft for the trials that they endure. Those are breakthroughs that bring large benefits to other segments of not just science, but our economy. But there's also the strategic advantages of control of space. We're seeing now with the advent of thousands of low Earth orbit satellites, just how much geopolitical power is projected through control of space technologies. These are the missions that allow us to refine and perfect those technologies. So that makes it very important. But I think overall, the biggest aspect of this mission is the inspiration that it gives to a whole generation of Americans. I grew up in the era of the Apollo missions. I remember how inspirational it was for me as a young person to look at what my country was doing and to take pride in what we were doing and a sense of hope and optimism about what that meant for the future. And I hope that the Artemis missions give that same source of optimism and pride to the current generation of young Americans.
Optimism and pride, certainly a big moment for the nation to witness that tonight. I mean, well, as we talked about this mission's importance for the economy as well as for our technology edge here, what are the real world stakes if the U.S. falls behind the space race, particularly against competitors right now like China?
Right. Well, we're just now starting to realize how important space and deep space technology and exploration are to continuing to be the dominant geopolitical power in the world. Certainly we cannot allow other countries to get ahead of us there. We have a huge head start, but we shouldn't get institutionally arrogant about the fact that that head start can go away and the other countries could exceed where the U.S. is. And unfortunately, for the last couple of decades, we've kind of been standing still when it comes to human exploration and capabilities in space. And I think you're seeing NASA now turn this around. And I'm very happy that we in Congress are a part of that.
So speaking of policy priorities here, we know that NASA is saying that it is aligning with President Trump's national space policy to advance American leadership in space. We know that the president has been touting about his Space Force back during his first term, which is now still growing. How do you see this shaping space policy going forward, and what's coming next?
Well, hopefully this is going to increase everyone's awareness of just how important it is that we invest in these technologies. We've seen with other commercial orbital capabilities through companies like SpaceX that private industry, when the conditions are correct, can take over from government in providing efficient access to space. But somebody has to pave the way. And for the last 60 years in the United States, that entity has been NASA. And that's why it is so critical that we continue to invest in the great work that NASA is doing. And it's wonderful that Artemis is calling attention to that important work.
So speaking of private partnership here as well, of course, NASA leading everything. So Artemis launch is estimated to cost over $4 billion, according to Bloomberg. And are we seeing a shift, you think, toward more cost-efficient space program models through public-private partnerships here? And do you think that's sustainable in the long term?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a model. Not only is it sustainable, it is the model for how things need to be done in the long term. And everyone should ask themselves, would we have companies like SpaceX doing the pioneering work that they're doing in reducing the cost of orbiting payloads if we wouldn't have made the earlier investments in programs like the Apollo space programs and the programs that preceded them? And the answer is no. I mean, those programs laid the groundwork for what companies like SpaceX do now. And if you look at what SpaceX is doing, the exponential reduction in the cost of orbiting payloads have had massive consequences in benefits for the American economy and American dominance in technology. Just look at the things that we can do with low Earth orbit communications, with some of the sensing platforms that are in low Earth orbit that filter all the way down to things like the economies of growing crops and increasing crop yields in the United States, better wildfire prediction technologies. I mean, the list goes on and on. None of that would have occurred if we hadn't made those early investments in NASA. And these investments that we're making today are going to unlock a similar category of huge benefits in the years to come.
And you serve on the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, also chairs the subcommittee on Research and Technology. Talk to us about what Congress is working on right now to really advance our space explorations, as well as some other technology-focused initiatives that you just talked about.
Right. Well, we serve a couple of purposes in the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. We control the authorization of funding for entities like NASA and periodically reauthorizing that funding, along with the guardrails that we put in place to make sure that taxpayer money is wisely and appropriately spent is a big part of what we do. But we also shape technologies in other ways and in other branches of federal government to make sure that we catalyze the changes that need to be made to keep America on the forefront of development of science and technology. And that's where my subcommittee comes in. As you mentioned, I'm the chair of the subcommittee on research and technology. We oversee the nation's research budget through entities like our national labs and our grant programs through U.S. universities and educational institutions to make sure that that pioneering work continues to be done in the United States. And I'm delighted to say that our position as a competitor in doing research and technology has never been stronger, and we're going to continue to advocating for that good work.
Well, tonight is certainly a testament to how important that kind of work is on your committee, as well as for the entire Congress as well. Congressman Obernolte, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Very timely perspective. Appreciate it.
Very exciting.